And we're back with Season 7, Episode 1, Celestial Advice. This is the one where they have a big party for Starlight, Thorax, Trixie, and Discord. But, wait a minute. We've got to have some kind of big thing. Twilight, but Starlight's gonna go and I haven't got anything planned. What do I do? What do I do? And so there's some freaking out. A little bit. Let me go ahead and say this is obviously a breather episode. This is practically the definition of a breather episode. It also continues my parallel. So, if you remember, one of the things I kept doing without really meaning to was I kept comparing To Where and Back Again to Best of Both Worlds over from TNG. For those of you who are aware of that, after the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2, there was a breather episode called Family. Yeah, this is the Family equivalent. A little less traumatic, obviously, because Family was primarily dealing with Picard and the horrific, mind-numbing tragedy that he actually would never fully get over. But yeah, it is still the equivalent. This is still the follow-through. And if I might be so bold, we need more of this in television. There's a wonderful usage. TV shows are so perfect for this type of long-form storytelling. You have an arc, and then you have a follow-through, like just a coda episode. Aftermath. Thank you. That's a better way to put it. An aftermath episode. And there's so much potential with aftermath episodes. Wrap up things, show how status quo has changed, kind of follow through on some of the ideas, you know. Yeah, Babylon 5 did this several times, too. There's a lot of benefit to doing this kind of an aftermath show. Now, that's... you don't always have to do that, but I point this out because it's really weird how rare an aftermath episode is in television. Very, very few shows actually do this. You know, I just mentioned Family. That's one of the only instances of an aftermath episode in all of Trek. In fact, anything after Family is debatable. There's one episode of Deep Space Nine, which was in season 6, which is debatably an aftermath episode. It's the one where Worf and Jadzia get married. I'll just tell you that one. But even that one just kind of happens next. It doesn't really follow through on the events of the previous episodes. It's just kind of the next one, right? So even that one kind of doesn't count. It's pretty rare. No, the baseball episode was actually a prelude instead of an aftermath. Yes, other than Family, the biggest aftermath to Best of Both Worlds is First Contact, the movie, not the episode. But I'm getting off track. Point being, good idea, good execution. This leads, of course, to Spike, who, despite having a brain this episode, also completely flubs his charisma check in order to deceive Starlight into keep looking at him. Meanwhile, Twilight is failing miserably at being stealthy in the background, but whatever. Apparently, Starlight is failing at her wisdom save. So let's see. Spike has no charisma, Twilight has no dexterity, and Starlight has no wisdom. Yeah, that sounds about right. Real talk for a second. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a D&D geek since I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since 1st edition. But I should probably add that something I've started noticing in the last couple of years of analyzing fiction is it's weird how many aspects of fiction make total sense when you think of them from the perspective of it being a game of D&D. It was also a good way to get some exposition done. It's arguably bad exposition, but it's bad exposition in character, right? Like, she actually is like, why are you reciting to me the things that I know just happened? And he's like, oh, yeah, no, it's cool. Everything's cool. I'm cool. Thank you, Savacom, very much, as always. Lufia 2. You got it, man. Yeah, you remember... Oh, is that your... I didn't realize that. Sorry, thank you again, Savacom. Welcome to the 3-year club. Very, very much. I will put your anniversary sub, which is a different amount, towards Lufia 2. So there's a brief scene, it's like 2 seconds long, where we see Twilight's mirror. I decided to go ahead and glance at the pictures there. There's some pretty good ones. First of all, there's the big one. At the beginning of every episode, there's this thing where it's like, My Little Pony, do. And, they go through, and then they take a big picture, and then they send the picture to Lester, right? Now, if you've been paying attention, that picture's been evolving across the seasons, bit by bit, changing perspectives, what's in the background, which people are in it, stuff like that. The Cutie Mark Crusaders have their Cutie Mark nowadays, little stuff like that. But that picture is one of the pictures in her mirror, so, yeah, no, that makes sense. They also have a picture of Discord and Celestia, who are making eyes at each other. I didn't make this up, so don't point to me. We also see Twilight and Cadence, who are younger, as in when she was younger and still being watched by her. We see Spike as the Dragon Lord, because of course they would have taken a picture with him with the scepter before he gave it to Ember. We see a picture of Pinkie celebrating, one with Rarity and Fluttershy trying on outfits. Now, all of this is just kind of neat. There's also Aloysius, who's just kind of hanging out there. But there are two really cool pictures here that I wanted to give special praise to and a continuity counter. First is the obvious one, Twilight talking with Moondancer. Let me be clear about that. Adult Twilight talking with Moondancer. So obviously showcasing that she has since gone back and reconnected and has been spending off-camera time with Moondancer. It's good. The second one's even more clever in its own right. It's Rainbow Dash and Applejack racing. Well, what's the significance of that? Rainbow Dash's wings are tied. I'll give you that one. That's some good continuity right there. So, continuity counter. There we go. I like to think that they continued to race ever since. It's just, Rainbow has to tie her wings. Anyways. So, obviously, this is just a gag. But do you think Pinkie Pie does pre-prepped party planning so she can literally pull a cable and activate the party stuff strategically throughout Ponyville? Because I would totally believe that she would do that fully in character, in canon. She's like, okay, there might be a party in this room, so I need to have streamers, which are going to come down from there, and I need to have the banners, and they need to be rolled up, so they can come down here, and just basically sets it up so she can later go kunk, just in case there's a party in that room, And yeah, we've talked before about Pinkie's wonderful organizational skills. Oh, that itches so badly. Ooh, So, yeah, no, I could absolutely believe that she actually does that. In character and not just as a gag. I hate Poison Ivy so much. The strategy, by the way. You never scratch the actual sores. You scratch around them. If you just scratch the sores, it's just going to hurt and blood and get... it's going to screw everything up. You scratch around them, and that kind of gets rid of the itch. Actually, my no really tip, which I can't do right now because I'm streaming. The no really tip I have for getting rid of itching, scalding hot water. Like to the point where it actually burns your skin a bit. I'm not joking. That's my nuclear option when it comes to itching. If it gets to the point where I can't take it, I will just, crank the water up, wait for a second, and then endure it for a few seconds. Because that will absolutely destroy the itching for, hours. But I call that the nuclear option for a reason. I don't like to use it. I've had to use it a few times this last week. Because Poison Ivy can go to hell. Freezing water doesn't do anything for me, poisonally. I also have other things. I've got Benadryl gel, calamine, all sorts of stuff like that. Anyways, getting way off topic here. So... big awards ceremony. Starlight finds Discord amusing multiple times, of course. And, of course, Chewbacca doesn't get a medal. I always feel bad for that poor guy. Odd question. Do you think they invented this medal for this event? Or do you think it was already a thing? I mean, Equestria is not exactly unknown to heroes even before the main six, so... Not really, Savacom. Not even done yet. I mentioned that earlier. This Tuesday, hopefully, I will be finally no really done. But even that's not a guarantee. Yeah, it's not like they haven't had medals before, right? So, I don't know, just food for thought. One thing I noticed that's just a very minor character point, which actually will come up later. There's this bit. There's this bit where Celestia is giving out most of the medals, and so is Luna. Celestial looks completely on top of things and just, it's whatever. Luna is the one who, of course, has trouble getting the one over Thorax's horns, and is, I guess the word I want to use is nervous or possibly anxious for it. Just kind of like, because she's not exactly used to being a public speaker and being a part of these sort of public events. Which makes sense. Luna doesn't really do that. She's not the face. That's Celestia's job. And again, that will actually show up in a later episode. Minor little tidbit I wanted to point out there. Yeah, exactly. For Celestia, this is a Tuesday. For Luna, she's like, okay, just be still and make the horns out. Make sure the chin's out. Okay, there we go. And then put the thing. Oh God, it's not going over his horns. What do I do? What do I do? No, yeah, you could just tell. You smile. Smile. Make sure to keep smiling. Never stops. Yeah. So, continuing the ideas of Best of Both Worlds and family, this is, of course, a very character-centric episode, primarily rotating around Twilight. All of them, act. I have seen all of that Season 7, although I don't remember about half of it. This is all obviously focused on Twilight, but also on Celestia. Now, we've had tidbits of characterization for Celestia since all the way back in Season 1, so that's not really new. But this really gives us some insight into her that we haven't really had before. The insight into Celestia as a person, rather than, as a leader or as someone who misses her sister or whatever else, right? It's kind of a new take on it. And it's a lot of it, because we do get a fairly large amount of characterization here, which I'll get to that more in a moment. Yeah, I actually pointed that out in my notes too. I mentioned I like how Spike, who of course has the brain this episode, immediately notices that something's up with Twilight. But I suppose we should talk about why something's up with Twilight, because... well, let's get to Discord in just a second. I want to point out two things first, before we get to Discord. Thing one, so you can't have friendship without makeovers? Anyways. I mean, it sells itself. Excuse me. Throat is not liking me right now. You have to do... Yeah, we'll see more about the changeling soon, too. Poor changeling brother guy whose name I don't remember. One moment. No? Maybe not. One moment. I actually did talk about that act, but in summary, I don't think he's a good leader. I think he's the guy who was there. For more discussion on that, see the previous VOD. Should be going live in a couple weeks. Anyways. So what's interesting, I mentioned this is a big character piece, and Twilight keeps talking about, this is a good episode. Let me go ahead and say that. But I think its weakest part is the fact that it didn't really have anything going for it building into this. Remember, at the end of Season 5, and thus the beginning of Season 6, is when Starlight was redeemed, when she became Twilight's pupil. And then we had an entire season of her being Twilight's pupil, which happened across like 3 episodes. I hate to complain about a character that, someone in my chat who will go nameless hates not getting enough screen time, but the problem here is Starlight hasn't had enough screen time to earn this dynamic. Yes, it's been however long. I usually assume a season is a year because that's the norm for most TV shows, but it hasn't been on camera. We haven't really seen this dynamic between the two develop, except in a couple of episodes. And some of the emotional core of this episode is missing because we just haven't seen the screen time between Starlight and Twilight to really earn it. And so Twilight freaking out about this, okay, sure, but you're not really the teacher-mentor thing. From my perspective, she's still beginning to become the teacher and the mentor. She's not at the point where she's willing to move past that phase, right? My opinion. Now we get to Discord. So Discord is discording. Yeah, exactly, S.A. Ross. It's all off camera, maybe, presumably. Discord is discording. He totally know. Absolutely, 100%. He does his favorite thing. He tells them the truth. And in so doing, tries to freak her out a bit. And so that's kind of great. That being stated, I relate to Twilight in this moment far more than I probably should. How many times, you may or may not agree with this may just be a me thing. How many times have you had something planned, or something prepped, or something built up, or something designed, or whatever, and you're going to reveal it to someone, and someone else talks it up? They're, you know, like, oh, it's going to be this big thing. I can't wait to eat this great cake, or I can't wait to have this amazing meal, or whatever, right? Something you baked, or something you wrote, or something you drew, or something you made music-wise, or whatever. And there's just tons of talking it up. And you're just like, and all your confidence just goes away. Because, oh God, I didn't make anything that special. I didn't make anything that good. And so I completely sympathize with Twilight in this moment of, oh yeah, no, I definitely have something big. I mean, even later on in this very episode, Rainbow says, of course Twilight has something planned. It's Twilight. This is what we call being a victim of your own reputation. And yeah, Discord knows Twilight enough. Discord has actually a decent camaraderie with Twilight at this point, to know her well enough to know that this is how this is going, and he's totally, you know, poking at her to try and embarrass her in front of everybody because he's Discord. So this is when Spike notices Twilight freaking out, and she's like, oh no, it's time to send Starlight away. This is where in my notes I mentioned that I don't think they've earned this, because they haven't. This is not the point to send Starlight away. I'm kind of glad they decided not to pull the trigger on that by the end of the episode, because that really would have been a mistake, in my opinion. So, the main five buys into this completely, because of course they do. And, so she brings in Celestia. And Celestia is just amused, because of course she is. I'll come back to that in a second. And we have yet another holodeck mechanic in My Little Pony, where Twilight can just project her imagination out as a hologram around her for the people nearby. I mean, I'm just saying, Twilight would totally be a good GM with that kind of thing. But anyways. Oh, God. So yeah, I have to give special mention to the after-school special between Thorax and Starlight. How do we decide? Attack! The winner gets to choose! Oh no, how do you feel about honeysuckle and peanut butter sandwiches? Compromise. I love that little tidbit. I mean, I've seen enough actual after-school specials in person at school by people who really are that bad of actors that it's nice to see it in this manner and in deliberately joking, you know, presentation. It's okay though, because Starlight is a most apt and perspicacious pony. So naturally, Twilight starts freaking out. Things might go badly. Oh no, something might go wrong. Now, this is funny in two ways. The first reason that this is funny is that, you know, she obviously comes up with this really specific... That is really starting to itch. This really specific scenario where things go really badly. And, you know, it just leads to conflict and destruction and everything's horrible. The second reason I find this funny is that's just being an engineer, isn't it? For those of you who have never worked as a software or a hardware or a construction engineer, and anybody who's working in engineering, engineering is all about looking at your project and saying, okay, how many things are going to go wrong with this? And trying to plan around them. Poor Twilight would probably, no offense to her, be a terrible engineer. Because she would look at the, you know, the thing she's building and just freeze up. She's like, oh God, oh God. Oh, God. And it's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. We could just... No, you don't understand. It can explode. No. It's like, yeah, she'd be completely petrified. Oh my gosh. Um, yes, Twilight's the project manager, not the actual engineer. Frankly, Rarity has the better makings of an actual engineer than Twilight does, but it's getting off topic. Celestia wasn't aware that she was an expression. That's the problem when you hit a certain level of fame. I'm not an expression yet. I need to take over the world so I can become an expression. Not to fix the world or to do any of the stuff I need to do, just to become an expression. Lord damn it. So then we hit the Predator part of the episode. Twilight, Ember. Oh my god, I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. We see our first joke about Starlight and Twilight's name. That'll actually come up later. And, oh no, she's gonna be tossed into lava, no! And then Starlight, now you'll notice, in the first imagination, her freak out, there's an escalation here. Her freak out was, oh god, she's gonna be humiliated and embarrassed. Her second worry is, oh my god, she's gonna be tossed into lava and burnt alive. This leads to the third one, where she goes to hang out with Sunburst? Yeah. And they start making a Flurry Heart clock, of course. Yeah, I noticed that too, Imperial Star Destroyer. Yeah, the third one is the end of all reality. Nice escalation there. Embarrassed, killed, destroy reality. I also should mention that before I talk about the character stuff there, that's why most settings that have magic usually have some kind of built-in in-lore limiters or oversight or anything with regards to trying to check and balance magical research. Because in most settings that have magic, that kind of stuff can actually happen. There are really messed up consequences for magic. Now, what usually happens, for example, to use a direct example, Forgotten Realms, a D&D setting, one of the most popular D&D settings, actually has kind of a localized paradox field thing. That's a weird description, but what I mean by that is if a particular mage decides to really warp with something, dimensionally speaking, it doesn't affect all of reality. It's actually contained within a small area, specifically because of the fabrics and the checks and balances that the various deities have put in place, specifically to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen. It makes me wonder, though, if Equestria is sufficiently, for lack of a better way to put it, idyllic, that nobody's ever thought to put those kind of things in place, those kind of checks and balances. Just food for thought, and something that I don't know if will ever come up, but it's interesting because, so let's get to the character stuff. She mentions, oh my gosh, what if they become too ambitious? Now, Twilight venerates Starswirl the Bearded. Now, we'll actually be seeing him later, spoilers, but what I want to say right now is that he was incredibly ambitious. In fact, I would actually say that based on the character stuff, probably one of the most ambitious ponies in the entire setting was Starswirl the Bearded. Which kind of makes me wonder about stuff like this, actually. But, you know, there's this wonderful bit. She's like, no, don't do it. Like, she's just freaking out over it, like, no, gosh. Ah. And then when they go down the drain, and she's actually crying. Now, I sympathize there too, because I have a vivid imagination. But, oh yeah, absolutely. But, then Celestia bursts out laughing. Okay, so the problem with this is they do this scene badly, to be blunt. I actually think this is one of the weaker spots of the entire episode. Because Celestia, the way they portray it is very clearly mocking, right? Because they just show Twilight, who is literally in tears, completely freaking out, and then Celestia goes, ha ha ha, and then cut to commercial. And they use that as their commercial break. Now, if you've seen me talk about television before, you know I hate that crap. I know that you have to do the commercial cut stuff, but I absolutely despise when they pull this kind of fake drama bullcrap with the commercial cut. I hate that crap. I hate it in Trek, I hate it in Every show that I've ever seen. I am dying to play the polka. Yeah, it's just, ugh. Hate that so much. Thank you, Baron, very, very much, as always. If you know where you want that to go, please let me know. So that's the problem with it. Now, her actually laughing, once we come back from the commercial cut, that's awesome. Because, first of all, if you'll pay attention to the actress, her laughter sounds a little bit more legitimate and genuine. And second of all, is that already on the list, Baron? Second of all, she explains herself very quickly. Like, I'm not laughing at you, it's just, I'm seeing myself. I am so amused because, and if you've been paying attention, she's been kind of grinning the entire episode. This has not been something that wasn't hinted at. It's just like the commercial cut was badly applied, but once we get to it, it's like, okay, yeah, no. And frankly, I've been there before. I don't actually know how many of you all have been there before, because that's kind of an age thing. But, you know, yeah, it's the grandmother reacting to the daughter reacting to being a parent. It's like, oh man, I've been through that. And you can't help but laugh at it. At least I can't help but laugh at it. Usually I keep it a little bit more contained, because it's like, wow. Yeah, I remember that. And I've had that happen quite a few times in my life, admittedly. So hang on, since Baron isn't answering me here, I gotta go check something out. I was gonna say, I don't think I've even heard of that game. It is not on the list. Oh yeah, no, the flashback was extremely well done. Also, side note, I really like the tidbit where it's like, hey, are you talking about Twilight? Because I can't see your imagination like I could a minute ago. Yes, I'm talking about Twilight. Well, whatever, it's a Switch game, so sure. It's gonna be a short one, it looks like. But yeah, she shares her whole thing. There's a lot of tiny details I'm not going to cover. You know, Moon Dancer is there in the flashback. She freaks out in front of the guards who are like, should we say anything? I knew there was a special group of fillies in Ponyville, confirming that she was at least partially aware of the fact that, you know, the main five were in Ponyville. There's the fact that she mentions, what if they encounter a Manicore? Which she did. What if she gets into Tartarus? Or Tartarus, I forget how they pronounce it in this one. What I find most interesting about this is she came to the decision that she needed to let Twilight go pretty early on, and then held on to her for a while because she didn't want to let go of her yet. It's just an interesting kind of what-if scenario. What if she had actually let Twilight go earlier? What if she had allowed her to go to Ponyville much earlier than the actual big disaster? Would it have turned out the same way? Would it have turned out better or worse? Now, forgive me for jumping into theory crafting here, but I actually think if she had let her go earlier, it would have turned out worse. Hear me out for a second. Twilight needed to be shoved into accepting other people as part of her social circle. I hesitate to use the word friends because, as I've said many times, Twilight was not friends with the main five for the first, season and a half. Yeah, she needed the shove. She needed the push. There needed to be something substantial and significant to push her into it, and frankly, if she had just gone to Ponyville, I think she would have just been like, alright, and just done her normal everyday thing like she'd already been doing, just in a new location. Because of the fact that she had to deal with the dilemma of Nightmare Moon, my opinion. Either way, there's also what really great line Celestia has. If you're still worried, you can always make her write you letters. That one line says so much, by the way. Because what that says right there is, for all of the other crap going on, it's pretty much cut and dry that the main reason she had Twilight keep sending her letters was for Celestia. because she wanted to keep in contact with her. Yeah, took 2 seasons, yep. Now, this is actually the adult topic for the episode, the dark theme for this particular work. Letting your student or child go. Which is a lot harder to do than it sounds. Now, obviously, the episode kind of wraps it up a little bit, but it is a fairly mature take on the topic, I think. It is also kind of related to something else that, MLP has covered several times. I've said before that a true friendship can withstand a shake or two to the system, right? And they're still friends after the fight, right? Just in the same manner, a mentor or a teacher or a parent or an uncle or whatever can and will maintain the distance of you leaving the nest and spreading your rings, assuming it's a real, actual friendship, relationship, whatever that is present. If you're a good parent and have a good mother-daughter relationship, you're going to keep being friends even after they leave. So, and yeah, Raskor is right. Knowing when to do it is also kind of a key thing. Not too early, not too later. Oh, no doubt, S.A. So, Starlight freaks out when she's like, oh, your graduation. It's funny because what we have is her face is like this. I know I can't fully turn without just completely doing, but she's looking away from the camera, so you can only see like a quarter of her expression here. But her eyes go huge. It's like, oh God, what? You're kicking me out? Oh no, I have to. And as Twilight's giving her big speech, Starlight's just the entire time. And so they're like, well, congratulations. We've got all kinds of ideas. We could go to Las Pegasus. You could have a changeling Gorb Fest. It's a lot funner than it sounds. I love Discord's take on it. That's just the first of many cheese jokes if we go down this path. But the way he says that is so wonderfully flat. There will be a lot of cheese puns if you decide to assist me in turning Celestia's castle into cheese. Give in, Starlight. But no, Starlight's not ready to leave. And I've already said this, so forgive me for reiterating it. Duh. Of course she isn't. She's only been here for 1 season. And come on. Yeah. So, she decides to stay. No real change to the status quo. Everything's cool. Wrap up. And kind of a weird closer gag. I find myself wondering how irritating it's going to be to empty that vacuum cleaner later with all just the random gunk in it. Oh yeah, she also gets a mirror, which has a picture of her and Trixie, of course. A picture of her getting pied in the face by Pinky, a few other things. So now we have to rate this episode. Now this episode is the worst episode ever made in the history of the ever. Cut to commercial. Come back. At least that's what I would be saying. No, I hate this commercial cut so much. Hang on, so this is by the female duo Joanna Lewis and Christine Sanko. Rating episodes like this is always hard to do. Because it's like rating Family, which obviously I didn't do. I never reviewed TNG, but if I were to do so, rating Family over on TNG is hard because Family is part 3, you know? Family in and of itself has some strength to it, but really stands on the shoulders of the best of both worlds. And it's the same thing with this one. This episode, in many ways, doesn't really earn much of its strength other than the previous 2-parter. And as I've already complained about, it still doesn't earn the dynamic between Starlight and Twilight. And I think that's the weakest point, which brings it absolutely down from Red. And I agree with the overall idea of rating this one as an orange. You know, it's funny, S.A. Ross. I tend to remember the Worf plot of Family more than anything else, because it's incredibly well done. It's so short. It's like 3 scenes. But it's brilliantly done for those 3 scenes. Yeah, Picard breaking down is Patrick Stewart acting his heart out, so of course that's amazing. I admit I tend to be irritated by the Picard plot, mostly because Picard's brother is a flagrant violator of Rule Zero. Just wanted to slug him in the face. Anyways, next up, we're covering All Bottled Up. Now, as this is also by Joanna Lewis and Christine Sonko. Now, I've talked this up a few times. Anybody who knows me knows that I've only seen the season 7 stuff once. And there's only like 10, 12 episodes from season 7 I distinctly remember. One of those is All Bottled Up, which I remember absolutely hating. Now, I'm saying that now because I am about to watch it. You know, so I wanted to say that before I rewatch it with analysis mode on, because I am very curious if I am going to still dislike it, which we'll find out about in roughly 25 minutes.